Okay, class, let's get going here. We have a lot of things to cover today. Many visuals in front of you. You've had your second examination. I hope you did very well on that. All right, so we're going to go through the review quite quickly here, folks. In fact, we'll be going through a lot of things very quickly today. We were talking about World War II. We mentioned that in the Pacific Theater of Operations. I think I told you about the Bataan Death March. Yeah, as I told you, my cousin was part of that. And he bore a hatred for Japanese until his death, as a matter of fact. All right, we also talked about Doolittle's Raid. We reached out and we touched Japan, 16 B-25 Mitchell bombers here. And we also talked about Midway. As a matter of fact, just last night got me so inspired, I watched the movie, 2019 movie Midway. It's a great movie. I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it to you good folks here. We also mentioned Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima with Mount Suribachi, Okinawa, with Hacksaw Ridge, and 50,000 Americans lost their lives in that campaign. All right, we moved on over to the European Theater of Operations. We will be back to the Pacific Theater of Operations. Not today. And European Theater of Operations here in Northern Africa, Operation Torch, Operation Husky. And we also mentioned that about the Desert Fox, Evan Rommel, one of my favorite commanders, if not my favorite commander. And we talked about Sicily, that was Operation Husky, by the way. And the invasion of Italy, Operation Avalanche. You don't know those, but I just thought I would throw that in for good measure. All right, so I want to kind of wrap up some things here, folks, as we move into the cross-channel invasion of France, if you will. But America's most decorated hero during World War I was this individual here. Let me get my lighting adjusted properly. His name is Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy. We see the 3rd Infantry Division patch on his shoulder right there. You can also see the Medal of Honor suspended around his neck, Purple Heart. See all of those, Bronze Star, if you will, Silver Star. We just go on and on and on. Our most decorated hero. Unfortunately, he did survive the war. That's not unfortunately, but after the war, he became a Hollywood actor. I can remember, as a matter of fact, always starred in war movies and Western movies. And a little guy, by the way. But anyway, our most decorated hero, and unfortunately he was killed in an airplane crash. I don't remember exactly when that was, 1957, 58, 59, something like that. If you go to Arlington National Cemetery today, you can find his burial site there right behind the Tomb of the Unknowns and right where the mast is for the USS Maine. But that's Audie Murphy. Thought I would throw that in for a good measure. All right, let's see what else we're going to have. This is what I gave to you during the last time we were together here, folks. We began round-the-clock bombing of cities in Germany, Leipzig, Dresden, Cologne, Berlin. A city I lived in for 2 years, Heilbronn, I didn't tell you about that the other day, was 80% destroyed by British bombing, as a matter of fact. It wasn't American bombing. And the Luftwaffe, that's the German Air Force, was literally driven from the skies. All right, we had air supremacy. All right, now what that Stalin had been wanting for so long here in President of the United States, FDR, was this cross-channel invasion. And it will take place on June the 6th. I did not write in the 6th, but June the 6th, and 1945. This is a cross-channel invasion. The commander, the Supreme Commander of all the Allied forces was Dwight D. Eisenhower. People referred to him as Ike. He would eventually rise to the rank of 5-star general. Here's a likeness here of Ike. Around the 101st Airborne Division. You can see the Screaming Eagle patch, which is on the sleeve patch for that paratrooper there. And this photograph was taken on the 5th of June, and that's Ike, trying to encourage members of the 101st Screaming Eagles to be vigilant and be safe, if you will, on your nighttime parachute drop, which will come over onto the Normandy coastline there. All right, so that is Eisenhower. And let's see what else we have here. And we're going to assemble a force here, and this was done so in England. The invasion site would be Normandy. I'll show you where that is in just a few minutes. But we were able to assemble a task force, so to speak, of 3 million troops. Actually, I think it was 160,000 actually crossed the channel, on the night of the 5th and 6th of June. We had 4,000 vessels, that's I'm talking about ships, 11,000 aircraft, and 3 airborne divisions were part of that. 2 of those airborne divisions, 82nd, 101st Airborne Division, were Americans, and the other airborne division was that of Great Britain. And I'll share a couple of photographs with you, and a couple of likenesses here. This shows you the invasion site. I forget exactly what it was. It was about 30 miles, maybe a little bit further than that. And you can see where the British landing sites, British and Canadian landing sites were. This is to the north. This is north up here. And it's on the coastline here, but we had Sword, there was Juneau, there was Gold. And if you go to Gold Beach, by the way, it is gold. It honestly is. In the sand there, it's just that golden nature. And then the U.S. beaches here was Omaha Beach and over here at Utah Beach. The Utah Beach was somewhat heavily defended. It had the high ground, which is present there. But this was the area where the Americans made their major concentration, major efforts, and that was Omaha Beach. And it was very heavily defended there, folks, and we struggled quite badly there trying to get ashore. If you've ever watched the movie Saving Private Ryan, this is where it took place, right there at Omaha Beach. I'll show you some photographs of it in just a few minutes. You may have seen this before. I think it's in your textbook, too. This is showing you Omaha Beach. Now, we're coming in here in these Higgins boats, and 30 seconds earlier, this ramp has been up, and this individual who is, where am I right here? This individual that is in the, I'm getting it all wrong here, folks. This individual right here is part of the United States Navy. Those are United States soldiers that just, they've had the ramp to drop on the Higgins boat, and you've got to get ashore. You've got to get ashore very quickly. If you want to watch Saving Private Ryan, you know exactly what I'm talking about with that. And, of course, machine gun fire is strafing your positions here. You're carrying about, 70 pounds of equipment on your back. And if this sailor, the CB, the sailor, is timid and he doesn't move the Higgins boat too close to shore and he drops the ramp too early and you step off into 10 feet water with a 70-pound backpack, you know what's going to happen to you. You're going to go straight to the bottom and you will drown. Now, where the Germans are up here on the high ground up here. Okay, so we have all these mines and barriers and tank barriers that are down on the beach itself. It is absolutely imperative that you clear that beach just as quickly as possible. All right, so we'll go back to our camera here, and let's see if I can find a couple of other photographs here of Battle of the Bulge, and I will show you a few of these brochures here. This is in French. It's at Armagh. It says the museum of the landing there, showing you a U.S. soldier there. If you go to Normandy Beach Day, or I should say Omaha Beach, you'll find a great number of museums that are present there. Where the Rangers made their assault was at a place which is called Point de Hoc, and you have these just treacherous cliffs here, where you have to scale. I'm not showing this very well, where you actually have to scale those cliffs here. And some of you probably seen that before, with the American Rangers, Ranger Battalion, which was scaling those cliffs to the top. All right, let's see what else we have. If you ever get the opportunity to go to New Orleans, be sure to take in the National D-Day Museum. That is in New Orleans. There's a price for that. Allocate yourself about a day here, my friends, or maybe even longer than that. It's a wonderful, wonderful museum, and I understand it's expanded quite a bit since the last time I was there. But anyway, kind of ironic there, it's showing you in the D-Day Museum. We've got Marines raising the flag at Mount Suribachi, which has nothing to do with D-Day whatsoever. I just happened to notice that, as a matter of fact. Tear yourself away from Beale Street. Tear yourself away from Bourbon Street, if you can anyway. Beale Street's found in Memphis, by the way. All righty, let's see what else I have here with my maze visuals today. I'll share with you some actual photographs here of Normandy Beach, and this is actually Omaha Beach. And some of these old 88 bunkers, that was a German field piece there, it's called an 88, still present there today. You can go inside of there and take a good look from the German view of what it was like to see the invasion coming in. You can still see the old pock marks, the shell marks that are present there. Some of these are off limits, by the way. Here's one in particular. Somehow French people felt like this was just a hazard to go inside of there. But anyway, nice place to visit there. If you were in class with me right now, I would have a packet of sand from Omaha Beach, and that would be given to the student that earned the highest grade on the third examination. Looking at it from the German point of view, this is on the high ground, looking out towards Normandy Beach. There's a little path there, sidewalk, and you can take a walk down there if you wish to do so, all the way down to the beach. Here's another view here showing you this is down on the beach itself, looking out into the water And I took this photograph in 2012, as a matter of fact. There, you can do like everybody else does. You roll your britches legs up to the knees and then walk out into the surf about 50 yards and then just charge in and splash through, just like Saving Private Ryan. Kind of fun to do. All right, here's another view here, looking out into the water there at Omaha Beach. Here's another view here. This is looking from the beach and looking up where the Germans were, up where the tree line is, up there. That's where the machine guns are placed there. The mines, the tank traps were in the foreground down in this area right here. And when you scale to the top, be sure and go by the Normandy American Military Cemetery. 9,387 Americans are buried in that cemetery. It's very solemn. The two brothers of Saving Private Ryan, they're buried in that cemetery, along with many, many, many other individuals there. It's real touching, it honestly is. Okay, so that is a Normandy invasion there, my friends, D-Day, if you want to call it that. And I'll tell you, from that, it was a very slow breakout. Took us about 6 weeks to break out. Finally, we were able to get out of the Cotentin Peninsula here. And let me see if I can show it to where you can see it here, where it actually took place here. Let's go over to the coast of France here, where the English Channel is present, because that's where the Americans crossed the English Channel, right there. I know you don't want to look at my finger, so this is where it was, right here. And it took about 6 weeks for the Americans to clear the Normandy Peninsula, Cotentin Peninsula, and then it was, once we cleared that area, it was literally off to the races here, folks. For the Americans, we'll come up and liberate Paris here. We will move along here as long as the supply system will keep up with us, the Red Ball Express. We can stay moving, and we moved across here into Luxembourg here, and we got up to this area here where Belgium is located, right where this is. And the winter months set in. It was in December 1944. December 1944, and the advance just kind of came to a stop there. The Germans were not offering much resistance whatsoever. Very cold conditions. A lot of snow came in. It was covering the ground there. And European winters are quite cold here, folks. It's about like southern Canada, northern parts of the United States, Maine, something like that. And so the advance just temporarily halted. And unbeknownst to us, the Germans had assembled a major military might and moved it up close to the American lines. And we weren't really aware of this whatsoever. And in the meantime, we had taken some of our troops that had a lot of combat, and we pulled those troops out of combat to give them a little recovery, a little rest and recreation here, moving back to the rear. And we moved some fresh troops up to the front lines here, because the Germans, of course, they were not present there. We didn't think they were anyway. And sure enough, in the middle of December 1944, the Germans launched an attack upon us. On our inexperienced troops, particularly 3 divisions, army divisions that were present there. And thankfully, our lives did not break here, my friends, but they pushed us back about 60 miles. The German objective was taking the port city there of Antwerpen. Antwerp is the way you would pronounce it anyway. And they pushed us back. So what do we refer to that battle as? We'll go back to my slide right here, and you can see what it's called. It's called the Battle of the Bulge. The Battle of the Bulge. And the reason we call it the Battle of the Bulge is because that is exactly what it created. It created a giant bulge. If you were in the class right now, I would have this article out for you, the Battle of the Bulge. Extremely, extremely cold conditions there. You can see some other photographs here on the accompanying page here showing our troops down in the foxholes marching to the rear here. So interesting story if you want to, and some movies about it too if you want to get deeper into the subject. Go to the city of Bastogne, or it's in Belgium, or as they pronounce it, Bastogne. I didn't write it down for you good folks here, but it's an interesting place to visit there with the American Memorial. In fact, I took a metal detector there and made a diligent search trying to find a number of relics left over from the battle. I wasn't successful with that, however. Okay, so once we, and actually what happened to the Germans here, the Germans just literally ran out of fuel. They ran out of gasoline. Watch the movies on this. They ran out of gasoline, and it ended up being just an utter defeat for the Germans, and they were put into flight there. And once we got that mess cleared up here, my friends, then it was off to the races again, moving ever toward Germany itself. And we finally got to the Rhine River, and unfortunately at the Rhine River, we could not find a bridge. All the bridges have been blown either by Allied bombing or they've been blown by the Germans here. And a plea was sent out to the troops to try to find a bridge. And lo and behold, we found a bridge that was partially damaged in a place which is called Ramadi. You can go there today if you wish to do so. The old remains of the bridge are still there today, and that's kind of interesting to see. And nonetheless here, not to make this a long story, we took a couple of engineering groups and military police and infantry, and we just charged across the bridge. Had the German detonation crews were on the opposite side, but when they tried to detonate the bridge, it failed. And by that time, our soldiers were over on the other side of the bridge. We eliminated the opposition, and we now had a bridge across the Rhine. And so we poured troops across the Rhine, constructed another artificial bridge, so to speak, and we were on the other side. And so for the American and the German, American and the British, we were just, it was like our own little blitzkrieg going across Germany here. And then finally, politics prevailed here, and the order was passed down to turn off your engines once you arrive at the Elbe River. And that's the way it's pronounced here, folks. You can see it right here. It's Elbe, not Elbe. In German, we always pronounce the last E, Elbe River. Pretty good sized river, as a matter of fact. About Warrior River size, something on that order there. And the reason it was the orders were given to stop, the Soviets, the Russians, the Soviets here, were still too far away. They were over in this area here, and it looks like the Allies, the Americans and the British, were going to take Berlin, take Prague, which is in the Czech Republic today. And so politics entered into it, and the Americans and the British were ordered to stop. And this allowed the Soviets to move across in this fashion right through here, and the Soviets themselves were able to come in and take Berlin, and they took Prague. We're going to pay for that mistake there, friends, here for the next 45 years, honestly, for the next 45 years. So, anyway, I want to share some photographs with you good folks here, and here is finally the American forces here and the Russian forces, Soviet forces here, will meet, and they meet on the Elbe River right there at a place which is called Torgau. I'll show you a photograph here. Today, if you visit Torgau, Germany, this is a monument, a memorial that was constructed by the Soviets, by the Russians, as a matter of fact. In fact, on the monument there, it is written in Cyrillic, it's written in Russia, and that indicates the exact place in which the Americans and the Soviets actually touched and shook hands. A lot of vodka drinking, dancing, and so forth here. They've reconstructed another bridge there today, and you can actually walk across that bridge and go over to the where the Russians came from, where the Soviets came from, where the Soviet soldiers here came across that almost destroyed bridge at that time. A lot of memorials present there. It's a neat place to visit. Let's see what else I have here, folks. So we're going to move on. The Americans, or I should say the Russian Soviets, will move into Berlin itself. Here's one of the final photographs of Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler's welcoming new German troops into the Wehrmacht, into the German army. Anybody see anything unusual about that? Well, they're kids. They're kids that are about 9, 10, 11 years of age, and they also recruited in 80, 90-year-old men into the German army. I wonder why they did that. It's all that remained here, my friends. Okay. And a photograph here of these are Soviet soldiers here on top of the German Parliament building, which is called the Reichstag. Be careful here. The one with the flag here is a Soviet soldier. You can see a couple of monuments in the background. You might be tempted to think those are Soviets. Today, if you go to Berlin, all of that has been rebuilt. Neat place to look, neat place to visit, however. All right, and the war will come to a close here on the 8th of May. Some people say it's the 7th of May in 1945. VE Day. So, victory in Europe. I want to share a couple of other things with you good folks here. And here's let's go back here. Here's a photograph of where the Reichsbunker was. This is where Hitler supposedly committed suicide. I don't have any doubt about that. He did commit suicide along with his wife, Eva Braun. They'd been married for 40 hours, I believe it was anyway. And it wasn't like Hitler just went onto the streets of Berlin and just scarfed up some gal and said, hey, let's get married. Eva Braun was his companion. I don't like to use the word mistress. Maybe that would be an appropriate word for that, but anyway. And I took this photograph. Let's see, would I date this photograph? Anyway, took that photograph, in Berlin, And this plaque here, which is present in a children's playground, it had just recently been installed. The Germans are very sensitive about their involvement with the Nazis and throughout World War II. So this place had been hidden for 1945, to well up into the 2000s anyway. And just before I arrived, they erected this sign here. It's in German, but it says it was on this location down in the Reichsbunker where Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun took their lives. And probably, if you will, they probably took their lives. I think Eva Braun took a cyanide capsule, and Adolf Hitler took a cyanide capsule and then blew his head off himself anyway. Okay, so that was April 30th, 1945 here. The bodies were placed in a shell crater. Bodies were placed in a shell crater, and the Soviet soldiers doused them with gasoline, burned the bodies beyond recognition. And where they lie and rest today, I really don't know. Nobody really knows. It is thought that they were in Poland. All right, now, as the Allies advanced through Germany, they found some very disturbing things here, folks. We refer to it today as the Holocaust. When I was in school, your age in school, we never called it the Holocaust. I don't even know what we referred to it as, but this was just a wholesale elimination of the Untermenschen. Now, you see a word here, Untermenschen, unter, obviously, and if you're not familiar with the German word, no reason for you to be familiar with it, Menschen. The Untermenschen. These are the under people. These are the undesirables. I didn't say that, but that's what the SS in many Germans felt. This would include people of the Jewish faith, Poles, Slavs, Russians, Gypsies. A lot of Gypsies in this area were homosexuals, communists, insane, deformed, handicapped. You're just not really an Aryan. You were white Aryan. You were perhaps considered to be an Untermenschen with that. Did I write down communists? And yes, I did write down communists. And most people don't realize that they were heavily targeted here. So, shall we move on here, folks? A number of concentration camps were established in Germany, and the Netherlands, and in Poland. Thrust this under the camera for you good folks, and you can see many of those. Bergen-Belsen, Ravensbrück, Sachsenhausen here, Auschwitz-Birkenau, which is right over here. That's in Poland, by the way. Buchenwald, Theresienstadt, Dachau, Mauthausen, just to name a few. Personally, I've been to, let's see here if I can get it right here for folks. I've been to Auschwitz-Birkenau. I've personally been to Dachau, which is present here. I've been to Theresienstadt. It's actually called Theresen, which I can't get my finger to go to it right there. Here it is right here, Theresen. I'll show you a photograph of Theresen. In fact, I'll show it to you right now. Concentration camp, which is here. The sign you're seeing here says Arbeit macht frei. Arbeit macht frei. Work makes you free. Work makes you free. You remember old friend here, Gavrilo Princip, that started World War I with the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. His cell that he died in is present there at Theresen. And that's kind of neat to go back into his cell. Cell number 1 there, folks. You just stand there and think, wow, Gavrilo Princip, who died 3 years after he was incarcerated from TB, he was in this cell. Anyway, okay, so I want to share a number of photographs here, and this is going to take a long time to get through here, folks. And some of these photographs are rather vivid for you, and they may be upsetting to you. And what the Germans did with these people that were taken inside these concentration camps, at first they used what was called the failed T4 experiment, where they would just take carbon monoxide gas from the internal combustion engine like a truck and just connect it to the hose, connect it to the tailpipe, and run a hose into the facility where 600-700 people were, and then just poison them with carbon monoxide gas. That just didn't work out very well. So the Germans came up with a type of gas, a Giftgas. In German, the word Gift, G-I-F-T, means poison. So Giftgas is poison. It's certainly not a gift to you anyway. And they refer to this type of gas as Zyklon B. Zyklon B. It translates to mean Cyclone B. It's hydrogen cyanide is exactly what it is. So let me go through this, and it's going to take a while to do this, folks. I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible for you good folks. These are some of the brown shirts as Adolf Hitler took power here. The signboard says, Deutsch wird Kauft nicht bei Juden. Germans beware, do not buy from the Jew. All right, then we have some more here. Signpost here, I'm not sure which city it was here. It tells you once again, Germans beware, do not buy from the Jew. All right, and you best heed that. Okay, let me see where we are here. All right, here's another one. That's the same one. What did I do with it here? Looks like I lost it here. Oh, here's another one of Germans as they went into Warsaw, Poland, rounding up people of Jewish faith here, sent to the Warsaw Ghetto, the Jewish ghetto. That's no longer there here. If you go to Warsaw today here, folks, Warsaw today is 7 feet higher than it was during World War II. The Germans came in and just bombed that city to submission. And all the rubble there raised the elevation of the city by 7 feet. Okay, let's get back on track here, and I keep missing this one for whatever reason. And on we go here, folks. People and Jews in Warsaw, Poland, being marched off to the Warsaw Ghetto. You can see the soldiers behind my hand there carrying carrying a Schmeiser machine pistol. It's kind of like a burp gun is what they call it. All right, here we go in Warsaw, Poland. You see a German officer in the center here carrying a Mauser there as an enlisted person. Anyway, that's in Poland. On we go here. Notice there's a party leader here, probably a Gauleiter or something. He's watching this young man paint on the side of a building. The word is J-U-D, and he's not through with the word. He has to finish the word with an E. Juda, it means Jew. That's a Jewish establishment, Jewish home. Are you sure you want to visit there? I don't think you do. All right, on we go. It's for people that the untermentioned here would be rounded up, placed on trains. Notice here we only see women and children here. Notice the Star of David. Star of David, you were required to wear this yellow star on your garment there. Please do not have any type of weapon, no penknife, nothing like that. That was grounds for execution on the spot to have any type of weapon on you. You can see, like I said, just women and children are present there. Okay. It's a lot easier in class to show these than it is right here in this camera here. Again, women and children here wearing a Star of David. Notice the train that's in the background right below that lady's eyes. And here we go here. Placed on trains here. You'll be sent off to these concentration camps. You don't know where you're going, as a matter of fact. Here we go. Have a lady in the foreground, but men in the background. We're in the Star of David. Here. You will be segregated upon your arrival, probably upon your arrival at that concentration camp. You'll be dead in 15 minutes. All right, here. Men, head shorn, by the way. Women have a head shorn, too. If you go to places like Auschwitz today, you find bushel bags just full of human hair. This was used in making fan belts, by the way. You find all sorts of other items there, just like children's toys, razors, combs, toothbrushes. There we go. Present here on the trains. Okay. Men separated from the women. You'll be evaluated here, and I'll show you a photograph of that in just a few minutes. And if you look worthy enough to work as slave laborers, you'll go over to the left line. If you're weak, you'll go to the right line. Women and children, of course, go to the right line. There's no question about this. I know where she's going. Anyway. Is she going to cause any harm whatsoever? I don't think so. All right, here. Stripped of your clothing here. Very humiliating experience. Like I said, shoes, just whatever, eyeglasses, whatever you can salvage from these individuals. These ladies here will be dead in the next 5 minutes. And they will be gassed. All right, here. Here's a crematoria. You know, some of these camps were exterminating 10,000 people a day, so it's impossible to bury them. So the only thing you can do is to cremate the individuals in crematoria. And I hate to be blunt with you here, folks, but the Jews were the ones that were incinerating the Jews. And this was actually a great duty, you know, because you would be spared. You know, if you were working and incinerating people, then that gave you something to keep you from being exterminated yourself. Slave labor here, and I'm not finding the photograph where the officer would determine who would live and who would not live. And he would just look at the individual and say, knock links. To the left, knock wrist, to the right, and these are slave laborers here, and you would work until you died. You're fed about 600 calories a day, and I'm telling you, that's a wonderful diet program there, folks, and I'm not recommending it by any means, but you lose body mass, you lose musculature, and when you can no longer work there, you're going to the line in the right. Here we go. The Allies liberated these concentration camps, some of them anyway, very rapidly. And for the SS did not have time to dispose of all of the bodies there. So they would conduct very hasty executions, hasty crematoria, but often they could not do that. All right. Liberation. If you go to places like Dachau today, you'll find these old bunks just like that. They're still present there to this day. All right. And here we go. These individuals liberated here. The SS had told the people inside, the inmates there, so to speak, they had told them and said, you think we're bad. You wait till you see what happens to you when the Americans get hold of you. So there was a lot of fear here from the individuals that were inside these concentration camps that the Americans or the British would kill them. The individual that's right in the center here where my fingertip is tapping right now has on his chest, on his thoracic cavity, 101. So that means the 101st Airborne Division actually rescued those individuals. Another photograph. I'm going to get into some very, very vivid, detailed photographs. You may not wish to look at these. Here we go. Again, though, you don't really know whether you're going to be killed or whether you'll be spared because the SS has indoctrinated them so much. The sign in Russia, in Russian here, says, do not laugh, smile, you will be machine gunned. And you can see the faces here of these children, and there's no smiles, obviously. There we go here. Finally realizing that you are going to be saved, you will be liberated here, and a lot of jubilation. Those individuals are the lucky ones. Lucky ones here. Boy in the Striped Pajamas. Some of you probably seen that movie. I liked it very, very much. The SS, as I said, were trying to kill as many of the inmates as they could. And what they were doing, in this photograph, they just set fire to the barracks. And with all these people inside, some of them made escapes here. You know, their third-degree burns, made an attempted escape. One individual here just jumped on top of the barbed wire. There we go. Those that are rescued here, you don't take somebody out and give them steak and potatoes. It takes a long rehabilitation period here, and some just did not make it. Again, it takes that's American corpsman there trying to tend to this individual. Okay. All right. And let's see here. That's the same one. It is the same one. Okay. And for Eisenhower ordered that the German people from the nearby towns be brought out and to observe, what the Germans were responsible for. For many of these German people, they claimed their innocence. They knew nothing about this whatsoever. But if you have trains coming through night and day, you had the smell of burning flesh, human flesh there, you know something is going on there. Notice in the photograph, we have only women and children, only old men and women there. Wonder what happened to the younger guys. Well, you know what happened to the younger guys. They are no longer with us here. All right, here. Unburied here. SS did not have time to dispose of the bodies. Graphic photographs, you may wish to take your attention away from this. United States Army personnel in the background. Here's a German lady in the foreground, not believing what her country was actually responsible for. It's illegal to have swastikas in Germany today. Here, folks, you can still find them as graffiti, but it's illegal to have it. Just bodies, going to be buried, mass graves. Why don't we take the German women and let the German women dig those mass graves? I don't have a problem with that. You can see the German people, women down there digging those mass graves by hand. All right. And we're almost through with these. Some of these are rather graphic here, folks. Unfortunate ones. Infants, toddlers, it didn't make a difference. All alike there. SS were just ruthless. Women transporting the bodies to, German women, by the way, transporting the bodies to the mass graves. All right. This photograph always disturbs me. It's a British soldier nonchalantly smoking a cigarette and a bulldozer. Other than he's not moving earth, what's he moving? You see. Okay. Bodies in preparation for burial. even the high command, the senior command, I'm not going to attempt to try to point these figures out for you here, folks, working backwards like this. Joe Eisenhower, who's wearing a flat hat, I can't believe his eyes. Omar Bradley, who is down second from the right, and let's see if I can find him here. Omar Bradley, which is here. Oops, that's George Patton. That's George Patton. And the other person here is Omar Bradley, later to be a 5-star general here. I'll try to stop moving those around. And fortunately, the last one I have to show you here, folks. And look down at the bottom photograph. And the individual that is here, oops, I can't get this right. The individual here is a lucky one, lucky inmate, Jewish, that did survive. And the individual on the opposite side there is an SS officer. And you can look in the eyes of the Jewish man there, and you just see the hostility in his eyes. And I'll tell you, folks, today, for Israel and the Jews, they will go to great lengths in the years to come to try to track down former SS individuals. Many of those individuals escaped, went to Argentina, went to Uruguay, Paraguay, anyway, in those places such as that. And you still have some that are there today, not very many. You got to remember now that there are very, very few people from World War II that are still alive today. Okay, so let me see what else I have here. I've got a few more things here that deal with the Holocaust, and I want to show these to you. Let's get this down here so you don't have to stare at me for a second. All right, now I will show you some photographs of some of these concentration camps. Here's a brochure. And this brochure is Auschwitz-Birkenau. Can you imagine your thoughts when you sit there on that railroad track and you look down that railroad track and you see how many thousands, hundreds of thousands of Jews primarily that were taking the train that took them to Auschwitz-Birkenau for sure death. These are all from Auschwitz, by the way. Look at the photograph there. Arbeit macht frei. Work makes you free. All right, more photographs. These are all from Auschwitz. The barracks are still there. You're permitted to walk through those. Auschwitz-Birkenau. This is actually Auschwitz-Birkenau. It's about 2 miles away. When you go in there, you see the photographs. The Germans were very, very efficient. Notice we have a left-right profile, straight ahead photograph here. These are all individuals, such as, that's the same individual right here, same individual that would be present right there. Germans are very, very efficient people, and they would take photographs of all these inmates, of millions that were going to be exterminated. And then when things started going bad for Germany in 1945, the SS realized, uh-oh, we've got a record of all of this, and they stopped taking the photographs. This photograph shows you Birkenau, about 2 miles away from Auschwitz. This is in Poland, by the way. And most people were gassed, but if you were a political leader, you were taken out to a wall where you were just shot. You know, it's a quicker death that way, to be shot. So literally thousands, of high officials, in Poland and other places here were just put to death right there. All right, I want to show you something here. And this is a canister here of Zyklon B. I'm sure it is inert today. But like I said, it looks like little pellets there. That was taken from Auschwitz. This is taken from Auschwitz here, showing you just how many hundreds of these empty cans with Zyklon B. All right. Another photograph here showing you, I think this is Birkenau. I believe that's Birkenau. And here's a crematoria. You actually can go inside of there today. Most of us think that these smokestacks, these chimneys here, were really, really high in the sky. And this one is not. You can see it's not very, very tall at all. But you can actually, where this guy's going in right there, you can actually go inside those crematoria. Eerie, eerie feeling. Some of you may have been to the Holocaust Museum, which is present in Washington, D.C., and it's kind of interesting to visit the Holocaust Museum. All right, now I'm spending a lot of time on this, but I want to share something else with you good folks here, and it deals with a young lady. Here's a likeness of her here. Most of you probably recognize her. Her name is Anne Frank. Anne Frank, she's 13 years of age. Her family was Jewish. They lived in Amsterdam, which of course is in the Netherlands. If you visit the home today, you can go in and see the Anne Frank House, Museum with a Story. And the house has changed very, very little since that time. You can really go up to Anne Frank's room. She shared it with another man. They were nothing going on. He was an older man. But this was just a refuge for the Anne Frank family and a couple of other individuals there. And they hid themselves away in a house. And in fact, it's two houses. Here it is, right here. These two houses here. All right, and where her father, I think her name was Otto, her father ran a jelly factory, a jelly preserve factory there. And the house was designed in such a way that you had a wall, a corridor that separated the front part of the house from the back part of the house. And so what they were able to do when things started going bad and the Gestapo and SS, were in Amsterdam, they just pulled over the entranceway to the back side of the house like a cabinet, so that if you entered the house, you didn't know that there was a back side of the house. And that's where they hid themselves away for a couple of years. And for Anne Frank, you know the story, Anne Frank, she maintained a diary here in which she would record many of her daily activities. And if you go into her room, it hasn't changed at all. She's a little teenage girl, and she would cut clippings out of the newspaper, fashion designs out of the newspaper, and she would paste those on the wall. And by golly, they're still there today. The bathroom, the sink, still there today. This is what it looks like today, Anne Frank House. You see what it looked like back in the war times there. Changed very, very little. Get yourself ready here, my friends. If you go there, you will probably spend at least an hour in line. Quite popular place. Has about 1 million visitors a year. Wrote this book here, The Diary of a Young Girl, Anne Frank. All right, maybe you've read Elie Wiesel. You've heard of Elie Wiesel, who was a Hungarian, who was also he did survive. Anne Frank did not survive. Nobody but her father survived. The mother and sister, they were carried to Bergen-Belsen, and they died of cholera, by the way. Okay, so let's change the subject, lighten it up just a little bit, folks. The war ended the Depression, not the New Deal. The war ended the Depression. Our federal budget in 1939 was $9 billion. In 1945, our federal budget was $100 million. That's at the end of the war. The U.S. debt in 1941 was $48 billion. U.S. debt in 1945 was $280 billion. Today, our national debt, this is last year, 2019, was $22 trillion. Folks, we are hemorrhaging here in our country, and we've got to do something about it. But I don't know if that's going to happen. We put 15 million men and women into service. That will stop your unemployment in a blink of the eye. Union membership will increase as a result of the Wagner Act. We had 15,000 wildcat strikes, even though workers were not supposed to strike. All right, the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters. We created that in the 1920s under the direction of A. Philip Randolph, and A. Philip Randolph insisted that companies receiving government contracts must be integrated. Let's get this book out of the way here. It's not serving any purpose whatsoever. We had another organization here, the Fair Employment Practices Commission. See if I can find it here for you good folks. There it is right there, Fair Employment Practices Commission, that insisted that discrimination in the workplace be eliminated. We also had another organization, which was called CORE. You'll study this in a couple lectures down the road here, folks. The Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, to resist discrimination. African Americans made up about 700,000 of our military force of 15 million. For blacks, you could serve in the Army, you could serve in the Navy, but not in the Marine Corps. For whatever reason, the Marine Corps did not allow blacks in the Corps. We have one group here, which is kind of an interesting group. This is at the end of the war, by the way. It's known as the 332nd Fighter Group. It was out of Tuskegee, Alabama. There was an airfield there. I understand it's a museum. Been preserved to this day anyway, 332nd. They are referred to as the Tuskegee Airmen. Here's a likeness here showing you some of the individuals there. That's a P-51 Mustang that's in the background there. And for the The Tuskegee Airmen, the Red Tails there, this was at the end of the war. They would fly escort missions, for American bombers, which were bombing at that time Czechoslovakia and Romania. And anyway, and didn't see a lot of combat. Like I said, it was just escort pilots there. We had a number of Native Americans, Indians, 25,000 as a matter of fact, that served as code talkers, and Navajo Indians, as a matter of fact. Some of you probably seen the movie there, Wind Talkers, I believe is the name of it, in which they were speaking their native language because the Japanese didn't have anybody, that spoke Navajo. So the Indian code talkers there could talk a native language, wouldn't have to be coded. For women, 33% of the workers were women. And women had a 60% increase in the number of women workers. We had such individuals as Rosie the Riveter, government girls. These are government girls that would go to the government offices, Washington, D.C. I'm not talking about White House interns by any means there, but we had ladies like Rosie the Riveter. We can do it. There's a neat little song that I put out for you folks. You watch the video on that. And let's see here. Here's another poster from that period of time. The girl he left behind is still behind him. She's a wow. She is a wow. And that is Women's Ordnance Worker. Okay, here we go. Recruiting poster here. Gee, I wish I were a man. I joined the United States Navy recruiting station here. I want you. Uncle Sam, some people call him Uncle Sap today, but Uncle Sam, I want you for the U.S. Army, nearest recruiting station present there. All right, we also had a number of women that were here. Before I go into that, here's some more photographs here showing you women riveters here working on the fuselage of an aircraft. Black woman, white woman, alike there. Women doing their part. I don't know if we would have that today. Some of the women actually went into the service. We have for the Army, the WACS, Women's Army Auxiliary Corps. The WAVs went into the Navy. The WAVs, Women's All Volunteer Emergency Service. The WASP, and had the WASPs that were present there. Women's Air Force Transport Service. And we had the WASP, Women's Air Support Pilots Service. SPARS, Semper Paratus, always ready. That's for the Coast Guard, by the way. And one day I was trying to impress my dad, and it's hard to impress my dad about anything. He was a World War II veteran. But I asked him one day, I said, Dad, are you familiar with the WACS and the WAVs and the WASP and the WASP and the SPARS? And my dad, without hesitation, he looked at me and he said, son, that's barracks talk. And he said, we would sit around the barracks and try to figure out what would be better. Would you rather have a WAC in a shack, a WAVE in a cave, a SPAR in a car, a sheep in a jeep, or a WASP on a raft? And I just told my dad, that's sick, Dad. That is sick. Well, so be it with that, too. Okay, let's see what else we have here, folks. We're going to wind some things down here. We had a number of Japanese Americans, 127,000 as a matter of fact. 127,000 lived in the United States. This was primarily in California, by the way. And what do we do with these individuals? Now, 33% of those individuals were ISI. ISI, these are immigrants. Well, that might raise an issue here, folks, but 67% were NISI. These are American citizens. They just look Japanese. So what do we do with them? Well, they were placed in relocation centers here, my friends. These relocation centers such as Manzanar, which is in Southern California. And we also had relocation centers in Arizona, Wyoming, Colorado, and even in Arkansas. Life was not good. It was not a Holiday Inn, but at least it wasn't a concentration camp. And they were kept there throughout the duration of the war. How would you like that, to just be suddenly uprooted because you look a little bit different than a regular American? I don't mean that to be offensive to anybody here, folks. We had one group, which were the NISI, that formed their own regimental combat team in the United States Army. We still have that unit in the service of the United States government today here, folks, the 442nd RCT. This was a NISI unit here, which were Japanese Americans. But wait a minute, we are not for any second going to send a NISI over to fight in a Pacific theater of operation. They will be sent over to fight in a European theater of operation. Because we still can't trust them. Here. Okay, so let's see what else we have here as we start closing down a little bit. We're going to see a presidential election to take place in 1944. Obviously, the Democratic candidate will be Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he will choose as his running mate Harry S. Truman. Harry S. Truman. Now, when I ask you in the future here, folks, what is the middle name of Harry S. Truman, you good folks tell me S, because that is his middle name, S. No period. No period. Harry S. Truman. And the Republicans will run as their candidate Thomas Edmund Dewey. Tom Dewey is what they referred to him as, Tom Dewey. He was a governor of New York. Looked like Clark Gable, if you know who I'm talking about. Later lectures, I'll show you a likeness here of him. And anyway, and for FDR and Harry S. Truman, 54% of the popular vote, 432 electoral votes. And we'll find for Tom Dewey, 46% and 89 electoral votes. So I ask you good folks here, how is the popularity of FDR? Still very popular? Of course he's very, very popular. But his popularity is going down a little bit. He's going down. By this time in 1944, FDR only has a couple of months to live here. His health is failing him. He smoked a pack of Chesterfield, unfiltered Chesterfield cigarettes each day against his doctor's order. He drank gin. He liked that. And I'm not saying that the gin will contribute to his early death, but use of tobacco product certainly will. Okay, here, folks, we haven't quite wrapped up World War II. We still got to deal with something in the Pacific Theater of Operation. Japan is still in the war here, and we need to take care of that matter as quickly as possible here. So we'll do that the next time we get together here, my friends. Okay, thank you.